Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today is the day, my friends. Today is Tuesday, July 27th. If you're listening to this on Wednesday, you know what's already happened. Training camp has started. What an offseason it's been, waiting for people, to finally get back into football shape. I'm excited. I know you guys are. The Giants are excited. Saquon Barkley is making his return. We're going to talk about Joe Judge. Spoke to various different media members this week, breaking some really interesting stories down in details, ahead of training camp and, some of these players, what's going on with them, what's going on with Saquon's return, Kadarius Toney's COVID situation, and so much more. I'm so excited for football. I can't even begin to tell you. Preseason's just a couple of weeks away. Regular season just over a month away. We're here. This is happening now. And I know Judge wants to kind of keep this on the low key. He wants to keep practices pretty closed off. But I'll tell you what, I am, just excited for things to be happening, occurring. Let's hope for the best in terms of health. Hopefully all the players stay healthy and fit for this preseason, this offseason, and really heading into regular season. But Anthony, how excited are you and how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm hyped, bro. I'm ready. Football is here. It's back. Finally, the Giants are starting off training camp. Okay, that's phase one, right? Phase one, that's going to fly by. Phase two, preseason. It's 2 weeks away. And then that's going to fly by, and then we're going to be right here at the regular season in just over a month here. I can't wait. I'm super excited. And even just for training camp, I'm excited to see some of these positional battles, some of these bottom-of-the-roster guys fighting for positions. Brett Hedgie, that's one that I did a video on, a Tony's Takes video on. I'm really curious to see how he performs in training camp, if he can make the final 53-man roster. And of course, I'm excited to hear from Joe Judge, as we did today. I'm always excited to hear from Joe Judge, and we finally got to hear from him again today, discussing Kadarius Toney and a couple other important things regarding the Giants. Of course, Kadarius Toney making his return to the field today after, his bout with COVID, asymptomatic. Thank God for him. But really awesome stuff. Football is back. New York Giants are back, and I'm hyped and ready to go. Let's get it, Alex.
Absolutely, my friend. And I want to start off talking about Daniel Jones because he is the catalyst. He is the number one factor that is going to really hopefully lead this team to the next level, take them to that next level, and build off the success that we saw last year in certain portions of the game. Now, obviously, we know the Giants, put a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of draft capital into bolstering this offense. Of course, they avoided the offensive line at all costs, like the plague. I don't know why, but apparently they feel pretty confident these guys are going to take a step forward. There's reasons to believe that. They can't possibly be as bad as last year. Well, I don't want to say that too prematurely. They obviously could be if injuries arise, but based on the simple fact that they have a full preseason, in-person training, consistent coaching with Joe Judge picked coaches this time, not Jason Garrett rollovers. We have Pat Flaherty as a consultant. We have Rob Sale, who has done tremendous things with Louisiana University and, at the collegiate level. We have a lot of great players and a lot of great coaches to really help them, find their peak, find their potential. And we're really high on Matt Peart. We know this. He has tremendous tangible traits, pretty good footwork, a lot of strength. He added some muscle mass. Really high on Andrew Thomas. He's been working with Azeez Ojulari, Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram down in Atlanta, Georgia. So Andrew Thomas, another guy who we are, optimistic about. Nick Gates, we know he can play center pretty well. He came on in the second half of the year really strong. I was really excited about that. But then you have Will Hernandez moving over to right guard. He worked with Duke Manyweather, one of the best offensive line coaches in the country, and he's been working all offseason to really roll his, his traits and roll his fundamentals over to that right guard spot, replacing Kevin Zeitler. I'm optimistic there. Shane Lemieux, that's the spot where a lot of people are a little edgy on, a little bit, questionable if he can take that step forward. Now, do we want him to? Of course. Are we going to vote for him? Absolutely. But you have to have a supplementation. You have to have a backup plan in place. That's Zach Fulton, who has been decent in the past. Last year, not so great. He allowed the most sacks in the league. Of course, that scares the crap out of me and most people. But before that, he was actually a pretty decent player. He was, graded overall around the average range, maybe a little bit above average, did not give up that many sacks. And that really stood out to me. So maybe it was something that happened to Houston last year, and they really struggled at times. The offensive line struggled. Deshaun Watson, of course, is amazing, but he had some issues, running around the pocket. It could have been just him running around, sacks occurring because he didn't throw the ball or get rid of the ball fast enough. And Daniel Jones, if that offensive line performs well, Daniel Jones will have the time in the pocket, right? The biggest concerns when it comes to DJ is his decision-making when the play breaks down, and his ball security, right? We are really confident he can do well when things are going well in the offensive line, and the pocket is clean. He's a very good quarterback when the pocket is clean, but if that pocket is clean, it allows him to throw downfield. You only have 10%, less than 10% of snaps with the ball traveling 20-plus yards. That's unacceptable. Needs to be more of a downfield-centric offense this year. We have the personnel to do it with Kenny Golladay. Kadarius Toney can beat people deep. Darius Slayton, John Ross. We have plenty of guys. Evan Ingram up the seams. Even Dante Pettis, I think, is adequate up the seams as well. He had that nice touchdown catch against Dallas in Week 17. Anthony, when you're looking at Daniel Jones, and Kim Jones said, in terms of what Joe Judge said about Daniel Jones, you don't see what we see. That's what he said. Joe Judge said, you don't see what we see. So clearly, I'm going to listen to the head coach of the Giants rather than the Twitter GMs. I know you guys probably are in the same boat as I am, but he's a hard worker, man. That guy has been working tooth and nail all offseason to improve his ball security, get into a position where he can really take that step forward. Looking at the first 2 years, DJ versus Josh Allen, their statistics are actually really similar. The fumbles, of course, DJ leads it by a tremendous amount, but Josh Allen has had his fair share of fumble issues as well. I think that there's no question in my mind, if that offensive line holds up, that DJ can take that big leap forward. He's done the work. It's time for him to blossom. But Anthony, what are you thinking about Daniel Jones? Do you think that, of course, Joe Judge is seeing a lot more than meets the eye, compared to the Twitter GMs and the people that you're kind of just looking at this at face value?
Yeah, of course. So Joe Judge is the head coach of the New York Giants. We are the fans of the New York Giants. The head coach has exclusive access to all of the information that we wish we had, right? He has an entire analytics team that's reporting numbers to him, and he, of course, is in the building every single day doing his work, and so is Daniel Jones, and he's seeing all of the work that Daniel Jones is doing behind the scenes. Okay, of course, the media gives us some glimpses. They take some videos, they do some interviews, and of course, the Giants media department as well gives us some videos, some glimpses here and there. They'll make their little films and post them on TikTok, social media, wherever, but we don't see all the other stuff that isn't shown to us that happens inside of that building. Inside of the training facility. What is Daniel Jones doing? Is he there till 2 a.m. grinding film? Very possible that he is. I'm not saying that he is or isn't, but we don't know what he's doing. Joe Judge does, and Joe Judge is clearly feeling really confident in his quarterback because of everything that he's doing behind the scenes. Daniel Jones has clearly won over the coaching staff, won over the heart, the brain trust of the New York Giants, Joe Judge, Gettleman, John Mara. He's won them all over with everything that he's done behind the scenes. He might not have necessarily won them over with his performances these past 2 seasons. They've been good. They've been bad at the same time. There's been a lot of ups and downs for Daniel Jones through his first 2 seasons. But he has shown improvement, and he has shown some promise and flashes of potential. But you take those flashes of potential, and then you combine them with everything that he's been doing behind the scenes that we don't see, but the coaching staff does see. That's what they're talking about. That's why there's more than what meets the eye. We see what's on the field, and we see the little glimpses that the media gives us, but we don't see the day in and day out hard work that Daniel Jones is putting in. What we know is that Joe Judge is really impressed by all that he's doing, that Daniel Jones is doing behind the scenes, and so if Joe Judge is impressed, I'm impressed, and I think all of us should be. If we all say trust in Joe Judge, we have trust in Joe Judge. If Joe Judge is giving us his vote of confidence in Daniel Jones, we have to trust that, and we have to trust Daniel Jones as well.
I agree. Shifting over to another topic really quickly, COVID-19, the everlasting negativity that surrounds the annoying pandemic that is currently ongoing. And for the Giants, it's not stopping for them either. Of course, we know the entire Kadarius Toney situation, people already calling him a bust, people giving up hope, and Kadarius Toney has been cleared to return to the team. So there is that for you. All of those negative people out there that had something to say that he was a bust for getting COVID, because somehow that makes sense. I guess Blake Martinez must be a bust too, because he also was just placed on the COVID-19 list. How about that? So, my friends, Kadarius Toney coming back. He's going to be okay. He was vaccinated, which, is a pretty clear indication since he got diagnosed positive a couple days ago and is already coming back to the team, is in the facility. Go figure. So, Blake Martinez now being placed on the COVID-19 list. He's feeling hopefully well. Wishing him the best as always. Luckily, he will be immune from here on out for the next couple of months after getting COVID, which is a good sign for him. Hopefully, he's vaccinated too, so he doesn't get impacted too severely. But this is going to be an ongoing struggle for most teams in the NFL. COVID still is very much present. The Delta variant is out there floating around. It's gaining some steam, and I think, teams are going to have to be careful. The new rules indicate some really sketchy stuff, including if you just simply can't field a team, if it's ravaging your roster, you have to forfeit games. So the Giants, that's why vaccinating your team and personnel is extremely important, because you could, be hit with losses if you can't play. That's the problem. And I think that the Giants have done a pretty good job. Joe Judge said the entire coaching staff is vaccinated. That's huge for them. And a lot of the players are, not all of them yet. I think it was reported about 80% of the players, which is a good number. Of course, some people aren't going to do it. That's, their decision. Who am I to say that they should or shouldn't do something? But of course it would be, safe for them to get it, and the rest of the team would probably appreciate it. But nonetheless, the COVID situation, Anthony, what do you think about Kadarius Toney coming back already? Clearly, it wasn't that big of a deal. All the people that called him a bust are probably scratching their head like, damn, he's not that logic didn't really go so far, did it?
No, the logic didn't go far at all, and I didn't think it would. Of course, Alex, you and I discussed this. People calling Kadarius Toney a bust for getting a illness, I mean, how does that make him a bust? He got a virus that all of us are, at risk of getting at any time, at any day. I can walk into the grocery store, buy a loaf of bread, and leave, and somehow in that time span, I am at risk of getting COVID. Kadarius Toney can get COVID at any moment. He got COVID. Thankfully, he was asymptomatic. The indication is that he was vaccinated, since he is already returning to the field. There's a much longer wait period from when you're not vaccinated. And since he is back to the field already, it seems to be that he is vaccinated, and he has already had his negative COVID tests. So good thing for Toney that he didn't have any symptoms, that he is okay, and he's back. Of course, now Blake Martinez is placed on the COVID-19 list. And my main takeaway here from all of this, Blake Martinez, Kadarius Toney, and Joshua Kalu, and Penei Sewell, and everybody else all around the NFL that keeps getting COVID, it's still here, and it's still going to have a major impact on the NFL season. That's one thing that I think we all need to keep in mind, especially the Delta variant and all of the recent spikes in cases in certain cities across the country. COVID is going to have some sort of impact on the season. I don't think it's going to be as great of an impact as it was last year. Of course, we're going to have fans in the stands. I'm so excited for that. But there is going to be a major presence of COVID, a major impact on the season, and that's unfortunate, but that's the world that we're living in right now. Hopefully next year there won't be any impact from COVID, but my takeaway from Kadarius Toney, Blake Martinez, these other guys getting COVID is that it's still here and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. This is probably going to continue to happen throughout the season. Here and there, there's going to be players that test positive. It sucks, but it is what it is. It's just the world we're living in right now. It's going to have an impact on this season. But, of course, I do want to push back at all the Kadarius Toney haters. I don't understand it still. I think that there are still people, fans on Twitter making comments, about Kadarius Toney. Listen, Joe Judge said today that all of that stuff was overinflated. All of the issues that you're hearing about with Kadarius Toney, he said it's all been overinflated by the media. He has no worries about Kadarius Toney. He is completely confident in Kadarius Toney. He was quoted saying Kadarius Toney empties the tank at practice. He's one of the hardest workers that he's been around. Kadarius Toney loves football. That's a quote from Joe Judge. He has no question about his rap career, okay? That's a side hobby, a therapeutic thing that Kadarius Toney does on the side. But he loves football, and he is here to play football for the New York Giants. Joe Judge is confident in him, and like Joe Judge was confident in Daniel Jones, so I am too. I am confident in Kadarius Toney. I still think that the Giants made a good draft pick in the first round of this year's draft, and I think Kadarius Toney is going to be a star for the Giants. He has way too much talent on the field to get, distracted by a rapping career that he has on the side. Like, seriously, guys, relax. Just relax on Kadarius Toney. He's here. He's back on the field for the start of training camp. I'm super happy to say that, and I'm really excited to see some highlights of him in training camp, and, of course, excited to see what he can do once the season rolls around.
The backwards logic of fans loving Joe Judge and then calling Toney a bust despite Joe Judge advocating for him is the funniest thing. Joe Judge is like, Kadarius Toney is a great worker. He loves football. What he does off the field is not a distraction to him at all. Like, we're very confident in that. And meanwhile, people are like, he's a bust. This has happened to him. That's happened to him. And they completely ignore Joe Judge, who they rave about, and what he has to say. Completely ignore that to justify their opinion. It just makes any sense to me personally. But let's move on from that and talk about some of these guys that are on the PUP list, right? So, Matt Pert started on the PUP list, Sandro Platts-Gummer or whatever. Ryan Anderson. A couple of guys started on the PUP list, and this is what Joe Judge had to say about that reality. Some guys, they just wanted to ease in, and basically this is nothing to worry about. He said, we just took the approach of anybody who's not 100% from day one that we're going to put them on the PUP list. This wasn't anything unique to one player, just an approach we're taking with every player. With the PUP list, we can pull them off at any point. We're optimistic that all the players are on it currently. They're all working with our training staff and making a lot of progress. So with that being said, I'm not worried about Matt Pert. I'm not worried about any of these guys. Clearly, if they're not 100%, they can be 99%. They have a toe that they stubbed. They're going to put it on the PUP list and just take it easy. They can activate them anytime. It just gives them a little bit of a cushion, just to make sure that, maybe if a guy is on the PUP list, maybe they have an extra spot during camp. They can bring somebody in, test them out, and then cut them immediately or let them go. Like, there's different things they can probably do with them on the PUP list. I'm totally fine with this. Not a big deal. We're not worried about that whatsoever. And let's see what else we got going here. Basically, of course, we talked about Tony and the defense. So this is what Joe Judge said about the defense picking up where they left off. The quote is, I think every year is its own year. When we started back in the spring in terms of our expectation, the standard of the organization, we started team building back in the spring, even when we were just on Zoom before the players all got in here during that phase 1 period. It's something that we build on and carry over all the time. Look, there's some things we've laid down as far as groundwork in year 1, but not all of these players were here last year. So it's important we go ahead and start at ground zero for these players to understand everything that we want and expect them to do. I think that's what's going to help them really elevate the guys that weren't here are the leaders like Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, Leonard Williams, even Saquon, who was around but didn't play very much. Sterling Shepard's another one that stands out to me. Even Evan Ingram stands out. I think that they're going to help these guys get up to speed pretty quickly. And the best part about the defense is that we really didn't add or replace that many pieces. We added pieces, right? We didn't lose anybody and then replace them except for Dalvin Tomlinson. He was really the only player that we were like, okay, we have to replace him. But the defensive tackle position, it's pretty straightforward. If you're a nose tackle, you're either plugging the A gaps or you're trying to soak up double teams for your pass rush, right? That's like your primary goal. They can supplement that loss pretty sufficiently. And when we're looking at the cornerback, Adoree Jackson is really the other big addition. And then the pass rush, Azeez Ojulari, obviously these guys, all additions, right? Not replacements, but additions, which is what I like. That's the best part about what the Giants did this offseason. They didn't replace a lot of people. They added to what they already had. And I think that's what gives us a good standard, gives us a good foundation to work off of. The defense was a top 10 in points allowed per game. We added to that. We added more talent to that top 10 unit. And that's what really gets me excited because I think when you're replacing integral pieces like the Logan Ryans, like the James Bradburys, you never know what's going to happen. Easily could be bust. Easily could go the opposite direction. But we know what we have, and we've just added to it to make it even better. So that's a really good sign, Anthony. What are your expectations for this defense going forward? Obviously, with the adds on the offense, or the defensive line, outside linebacker core, and those cornerbacks. Are you thinking that we're going to be top 5 this year in terms of points allowed per game?
I feel like you can never really predict top 5. Like, that's so strong, 32 teams saying that this team is going to be top 5 in defense. I feel like that's a difficult projection, but to say top 10, give yourself a little more breathing room, I think that's very fair to assume that the Giants are going to be a top 10 defense this year. I think most NFL fans who've been keeping a close eye on this team and keeping a close eye on defenses around the league should know the Giants are building something really special on the defensive side of the ball, and they should. If they don't have a top 10 defense this year, that'll be a disappointment. They should have a top 10 defense. So top 5, I do think, is realistically obtainable, but I'm not going to say it's my expectation because I don't want to set the bar too high for the New York Giants defense this year. But I do love everything they brought in. I love the addition of Azeez Ojulari. I think the edge rusher group is really improved this year. I don't worry too much about the loss of Dalvin Tomlinson. I think that's going to be a big loss because Dalvin was such a great player, but I do trust in Patrick Graham. I know that he's really creative with the way that he mixes up his front 3 or 4 or even sometimes 5 on the defensive line. So I do feel like he has a plan on how to supplement that loss right there. It was kind of like the Giants let Dalvin Tomlinson walk in order to get Kenny Galladay, and I think that's a fair trade that we can all agree was the correct decision considering positional value, the importance of improving the offense versus sustaining the greatness of our defense right now, and they still found ways to improve the defense anyway. So I do think that the front office made the right decision. It's unfortunate to see Dalvin go. He's an awesome player, and I wish him the absolute best of luck in his career with the Minnesota Vikings, but Danny Shelton's probably going to be that nose tackle. That's obviously a big talent drop-off. I do believe Dalvin Tomlinson's, in the upper half of nose tackles in the NFL. Danny Shelton, I don't think is anywhere close to there, but he is average. He's your average run-of-the-mill nose tackle, and honestly, you look around at a lot of the other top defenses in the NFL, a lot of them are rolling out there with average run-of-the-mill nose tackles on their team. So I'm not too worried about the Giants' nose tackle position at all. I think that you look at the 3-tech or /4 eyes, you look at Dexter Lawrence, you look at Leonard Williams, and you're going to say, okay, the Giants still have one of the best defensive lines in football, and they already upgraded their edge rusher position. Blake Martinez is coming back. Jabril Peppers is going to continue to play his linebacker role, actually going to be playing it even more, improving even further there, because now they have Kadarius Toney on the back end. Xavier McKinney on the back end playing safety more because he's healthy now. So I love what the Giants have built on defense. I do think top 5 is obtainable. Not going to call it my expectation, but my expectation is for this to be a top 10 unit this year.
I think I would agree. And, as we're talking, some cool quotes from Daniel Jones are pouring in from the media session. And he said, regarding Joe Judge in training camp this year, we're definitely going to run. That's a big piece of what Joe Judge believes in. And I think that's a positive thing, right? Because Joe Judge harps on stamina. He harps on, mitigating fatigue and conditioning. This is what Sterling Shepard said. He was like, I've never had a coach that's made us condition this much. I've never had a coach, put this much pressure on us to be in physically perfect shape. Because when the fourth quarter comes around, man, and you're gassed and your offense has been on the field, your defense has been on the field the entire game, and you have to go down and score that one final drive, either you're gassed and your just legs can't handle it and you're not running routes crisp, or your offensive tackles are lagging behind fresh rotating pass rushers. Or the alternative side is your legs are fresh, you feel good, you're conditioned, you're ready for that moment, and you take advantage of it because you're prepared. What's the quote? It's like if you're prepared to fail, or failing to prepare is preparing to fail. That's the quote. And I think that very much applies to what Joe Judge's mentality is for the Giants, and I think he's done a tremendous job setting up this team for success by doing the simple things. You can control these things, you know what I mean? When you're in the middle of a game, you can't always control what's going to happen. But one of the factors you can control is being in perfect physical shape and being conditioned, prepared to take on that moment. That's something you can control. And if you are able to do that, then take advantage of it. And Joe Judge does a phenomenal job disciplining his players in that way. So that stands out to me a lot, Anthony, But Sterling Shepard said, of playing in the slot again, I love the slot. It's where I'm super comfortable. I like the space you have, but I can go outside as well. So we've talked about how Sterling Shepard is capable of playing on the outside, the inside, and of course, Kadarius Toney will be sharing time with him in there. I think they're really going to do a really good job of playing Z and slot together and like those double formations. I think the Giants are going to run a lot of one running back. Maybe 11 personnel, 10 personnel formations, really. A lot of 12 personnel in the running game. Maybe on first downs, I expect to see a lot of 12 personnel, but 11 and 10 personnel on second and third downs, because I think they're going to want to pass the ball. They're going to want to get play action involved. They're going to want to be running Saquon out of the shotgun in like those halfback draw scenarios. So Sterling Shepard, we know what he can do in the slot. He's a phenomenal route runner on the interior. You cannot stick with him. Think about this. If you need 2 slot corners, if you're up against another team, you have Kadarius Toney and you have Sterling Shepard both playing the slot. They could be on either side of the line of scrimmage. One of those outside corners is going to have to come inside. Maybe they're not that refined at playing slot corner. Maybe they have 2 nickelbacks on the opposite team. One of them's good, one of them's bad. You have 2 guys who can destroy a good slot cornerback, right? The Giants are going to be able to expose a lot of matchups this next upcoming season, and I think Shepard and Kadarius Toney alongside each other are going to be just phenomenal. Anthony, would you agree with that assessment?
Absolutely. I do want to plug another Tony's Takes episode because I did break down the role for Sterling Shepard in this year's offense on one of those Tony's Takes episode to summarize basically, but I did provide a lot of great stats. So if you want to go check that out, just search the channel, Tony's Takes, Sterling Shepard, you'll find it. But what I do see this season for Sterling Shepard is a rotation. I think when they want Darius Slayton on the field, he's going to be outside, and then you're going to have Sterling Shepard in the slot. But when they're trying to get Kadarius Toney on the field, I think that's when Sterling Shepard rotates to the outside, plays the Z, and you have Kadarius Toney in the slot. So I really honestly think that you can probably see about a 50-50, probably more 60-40 slot to outside split for Sterling Shepard. He is going to be more of a slot receiver this year than he has been the past 2 years. I think he's been playing about 70% of his snaps at the Z position the past 2 years. But I do think that this upcoming season, it's going to flip over to the slot, maybe 60-40 60-40, 70-30 again, but in favor of the slot this year. I think we're going to see him more on the slot, but I also do think that you're going to see him a fair amount on the outside as well. It's just going to be that rotation. Who do they want on the field for what packages? What are they trying to do offensively? What is the matchup? What does the defense present you? Does this team have a terrible slot corner? Okay, let's go ahead and put Sterling Shepard out there because we know that he's going to eat him alive. Does this team maybe not have a very good outside cornerback number 2? Okay, let's put Sterling Shepard over there and then allow Kadarius Toney to get to work on the slot corner. You know, it's just always going to be matchup dependent, and the Giants, and having so many good receivers on their team now, have given themselves plenty of matchup advantages, right? So their offense is in a really good position to succeed this upcoming year. Sterling Shepard, I do think, has a big year this upcoming season. I'm not saying he's going to have like 1,000 receiving yards or anything, but he's going to be a really good number 2 wide receiver for the Giants. That's what he's always been throughout his career, is a very good number 1 or number 2 receiver. He's been forced to play as a number 1, but this season he's going back to that number 2, playing a lot in the slot, and I think that's going to be a big year for Sterling Shepard. I do see him rotating around quite a bit, but I think you're going to get Kadarius Toney on the field as often as you can as well. I don't know, man. The Giants have a lot of players to get on that field. They got a lot of players that need to get their snaps, right? And that's exciting, though. That's a good problem to have. We talked about this for the defensive side of the ball as well. It's a good problem to have when you're saying, how do we get this player on this field for this amount of snaps? Because that just means you have talent in front of that player. Giants just now have a lot of talent in their receiving core. And, of course, Alex was mentioning all the different personnel packages. He mentioned the 11 personnel. I think the Giants are going to play a lot more 11 personnel this year than they did last year, because last year they didn't play it so much. They played a lot of 12 personnel despite having a poor backup tight end position and honestly a poor starting tight end position. So I think you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel this year as well, because you do have Evan Engram and now Kyle Rudolph. But I think you're going to see more 11 personnel as well, because they're going to want to get all 3 receivers that they can on the field, and even try and get 4 on the field as often as they can, because they just have added so much talent to that receiving core, which of course is super, super exciting. It's going to mean big improvements to the offense this year. I really don't think I can suffer through another season like last year watching that Giants offense get to work. That was putrid. That's how I like to describe it, a putrid offensive unit last year. But it should be majorly improved this upcoming season, and I can't wait to see it on the field and get going in 2021.
Yeah, and one thing that Sterling Shepard just said that is music to my ears. I mean, we've been hammering down the past couple of weeks. He said guys on Kenny Golladay and Kyle Rudolph, guys will draw more attention and free guys up and vice versa. Playmakers are what the team needed, and it was addressed. Sterling Shepard said this, right? He said that playmakers is something that we needed, and the team addressed it. They actually brought in guys that will bring attention to other players, opening up the field for everybody else. That is the problem the Giants had last season on offense. They just had so little talent that really commanded attention. They were just letting Wayne Gallman run all over them. They were like, whatever, let him run all over us. At the end of the day, like, we're just going to destroy them on defense anyway. Even though our defense really held up quite well, just the time of possession, what can you do? If you look at the difference in time of possession, the Giants defense, ranking 10th in points allowed per game, stands out that much more when you actually look at how long they were on the field, like every game. If you keep our offense on the field more, it's going to really make our defense that much better, because they're going to be on the field so much less. They're going to be rested, prepared for the fourth quarter when things come down to it. Anthony, so what are you thinking about Kenny Golladay, all these weapons, and what Sterling Shepard had to say about that?
Basically the same thing that I was saying. The Giants are going to have to get really creative, find out ways to get all 4 of these guys on the field, run more 11 personnel. Kenny Golladay, of course, is going to have a huge impact on this team. The Giants really struggled to get vertical on offense last year. They struggled to push the ball downfield, whether that be because of Jason Garrett or because of the lack of talent going vertical in their personnel. Daniel Jones threw the deep ball really, really well at one of the highest levels at any quarterback in the NFL this past season. But he didn't really have a good deep threat to rely on, so they didn't throw the ball deep too much. Now he does. Kenny Golladay is a top 3 receiver going vertical in the NFL, top 3 deep threat in this league. So I do think that he's going to have a major impact. And, of course, Kenny Golladay being on the team is going to make Sterling Shepard better. It's going to make Darius Slayton better. It's going to make Kadarius Toney a better player. And it's also going to open things up a lot for Saquon Barkley, the return of Saquon Barkley, which I do think is something that we should mention, Alex, as we are getting some conflicting, messages from certain media members regarding Saquon Barkley. Some people are confident that he's playing in Week 1. Others are saying, slow your roll, hold your horses. Not so sure that that's going to be the case, so that's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on as training camp develops.
Yeah, personally, the way I see it going is I think that Saquon's pretty much back to full health. He just has to get his football legs under him. I mean, he says he feels great. He says he feels like he's back to normal. But of course, the Giants want to view this as a long-term thing. They don't want to rush him back. They don't want to risk re-injuring that because end of the day, it's just not worth it. I think they'll probably ramp him up about a week or so before the regular season starts. They'll ease him into the process, maybe let's say 40%, 30% reps in week 1, maybe 50% week 2, 75% week 3. I think by week 4 or 5 he'll be back to full health and fully fit for the field. But you don't want to risk it. When you're in a live game, adrenaline's flowing. You want to make that cut. You want to make that guy miss. You got to gain the confidence back to put all that weight on your knee that was just completely shredded. You really got to be careful because you can re-injure that so easily. How many times I've re-injured my left ankle, high ankle sprains, like multiple of them, just because I got adrenaline. I forgot the injury was even there. I tried to get too overzealous, and bam, I'm out for another 4 or 5 months. So it's like you have to be careful. You have to ease into it. You can't risk it. You got to be cautious, but also confident. That's it's going to take time. The mental portion of it's going to take time. And the Giants want him to be a long-term solution. They want him to be a long-term healthy player, and I think that's what they're going to do. They're going to really ease him in by week 4 or 5. He'll be back to full health and really back into the game. But Anthony, are you kind of seeing something similar?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm seeing something similar. I think the Giants are going to have to be careful with the way that they treat Saquon Barkley coming back from a devastating injury last year. Torn ACLs are no joke. You have to be really, really cautious with a player recovering from that injury. But I do think, Saquon Barkley has been working hard. I think that he is progressing quite well. From everything that we've seen and everything that we've heard, his rehab is going well. He is getting back to full health. Just a matter of the Giants wanting to take it easy with him and wanting to protect him. Because I think they're thinking, I know that's what Joe Judge said, they're thinking long-term, right? They're not thinking about getting him onto the field for week 1 so they can get a matchup advantage against the Denver Broncos. No, they're thinking, okay, we want to be a playoff team this year, and we want to be competing week 17 and beyond. We want Saquon Barkley healthy week 17 and beyond. So let's not worry too much about rushing him in for weeks 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's worry about having him healthy for weeks 17 18, 19, 20, 21, hopefully get all the way to the Super Bowl. That's what the Giants are thinking long-term, and even, of course, thinking about his long-term career. You never want to rush someone back from a torn ACL because if they tear it again, now you're talking about long-term, like year-long, 2-year-long effects from that injury. You're thinking about Derrick Rose in his prime. That's what you're going to call back to. So the Giants absolutely need to be cautious with Saquon Barkley. They need to be careful, and they also do need to think the way that they are thinking, which is long-term. Let's not focus on week 1. Let's focus on week 18, 19, and 20.
Yeah, I think that's a good evaluation as well. You just got to be careful at the end of the day. And guys, that's kind of wraps up this episode of Fireside Giants. Just breaking down a couple things, talking about the latest headlines. Logan Ryan, Sterling Shepard, both vaccinated, so we do know a lot of these players are vaccinated and won't be in too much trouble. Of course, breakthrough cases do occur, but very much unlikely if you do have the vaccination. So obviously, we want these guys to be fully healthy. We want these guys to be safe, and I think that they will be for the most part, as long as they everyone kind of stays disciplined and respects each other. But guys, tomorrow we'll have a little bit more access to seeing what's going on. Of course, more interviews and stuff like that with players and more news. So we'll have you guys caught up with everything you need to know regarding the New York Football Giants moving forward. We are in it. It is here. I'm excited. I know you guys are. There's plenty more info to come, and let's have fun with it. Let's enjoy this process. Enjoy this process of training camp and the preseason, because it's going to be fun. And this is a team that I feel very confident in, much more so than the past couple seasons. And I gotta say, I'm generally a pretty positive guy, a pretty confident guy with our team. At least I try to be. The last couple of years, we've predicted pretty poor seasons, middling average campaigns, and that it's been even worse than that. So let's go for it. Let's go for the gold this time. Let's have fun. Let's do this, my friends. But make sure to subscribe below on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Turn those notifications on. We'll have another piece of content out for you guys tomorrow. As always, check out our social media accounts, Fireside Giants on Instagram, and Alex Wilson ESM, and Anthony_Avardo on Twitter. It'll be on the YouTube page on the background as you're watching. You can always follow us there. Plenty of info at all times. If anything big breaks, always on top of it. So we got you guys covered there. And have a fantastic Tuesday, and we'll catch you guys tomorrow.